Okay, thank you. Okay, so thank you so much. This is a Nevada Department of Wildlife education program. It is 6:30 on the dot. More people will be coming in, but we're gonna go ahead and get started. So this is a family program and is rated PG. Profanity, inappropriate behavior won't be tolerated in the chat or the Q&A box. All of the questions that you guys will have this evening, I really encourage you to type them in the Q&A or the question and answer box. That can be found at the top of your screen or the bottom of your screen, depending on how your screen is situated. It might look different than what I'm seeing from my end. I will also be watching the chat box throughout the presentation this evening. We will have questions for you. There's a little bit of interactivity that we'll have for the entirety of the presentation tonight. However, all of these questions, all of the chat should be on topic and should be appropriate. If it's not, we have the ability to kick you out, even though we don't want to do that. This is a live stream and it will be recorded. All of our presentations go up on our YouTube channel after the fact. You just have to give us a little bit of time. And so tonight we are talking about waterfowl identification or waterfowl ID. This is part of a workshop series. This is part 2 of 4. I am your host this evening. My name is Jess Brooks. I work with the Nevada Department of Wildlife. I am the Southern Region Wildlife Education Coordinator. And we also have Rob Vinson. He is a refuge manager at Pahranagat, and both of our contact information are on the screen. They'll also be shown at the end of the presentation. Feel free to contact us at any moment, any time, here or after, if you have questions about anything. I'm so fortunate to be joined by Rob tonight. He works with Fish and Wildlife Service. He's super helpful, and together we developed this presentation for you this evening. And I especially want to thank the panelists and the moderators tonight. We have very passionate, very smart, talented staff. All of the questions that you guys will be submitting in the Q&A box will be answered live by them. So a really big thank you for them tonight. All right, so welcome. Very first, we're going to be going through waterfowl ID, of course, but before we get to that moment, we're going to be talking about flyways and migration, just a little bit, identification features, resources that can help you guys, and then we're going to be going into bird ID, species specific. We're going to be talking about ducks, in particular dabbling and puddle ducks and diving ducks, and what sets those apart. We're going to be going over geese and other, which is whistling ducks, sandhill cranes, and swans, just to name a few. And we will have pictures and some of those ways that you can tell those species apart. So we do have 4 migration flyways in North America. There is a little bit of Central America included down in here. There are 4. We are part of the Pacific Flyway in purple just here. So if you're in another part of the country, welcome to the Pacific Flyway for this evening. This yellow star that you see on the screen, that's Nevada. That's where we're coming from you tonight. The Pacific Flyway stretches 4,000 miles north to south and 1,000 miles east to west. It includes Alaska, Arizona, California, Idaho, Utah, Oregon, Washington, part of Colorado, Wyoming, New Mexico, Montana, the Continental Divide, and the Canadian provinces, British Columbia and Alberta, the Yukon, and the Northwest Territories. It is a really unique migration flyway in that the Arctic to the west coast and Mexico and the Rocky Mountains all the way to Pacific Ocean. So it has landlocked states as well as states and provinces that are against the Pacific Ocean. And it also has the most varied waterfowl habitats in North America. which is very, very cool. We have a lot of Pacific Flyway stopover sites. So the map that you see on your screen, all of those dots, those little red dots, as part of the United States portion of the Pacific Flyway, all of those are well-known and monitored and or studied stopover sites for migrating birds. Those crucial stopover sites provide and serve as a small oasis in the desert landscape. And you'll notice that in California, let me pull out my laser pointer here. In California, in the Central Valley, there are quite a few. However, in the state of Nevada, where we're coming from, there aren't as many. We do have this basin and range region here in the central part of the state. That just means that where we do have stopover sites, they're extremely important. We do have to watch over those, and birds who are migrating desperately need to have those while they're on their pathway on their migration route. Ducks Unlimited and its partners have conserved just about 1 million acres of these stopover sites and the habitat that they're surrounded by. It's a great resource. That's one of the main resources that will provide for you. I have a few links to share with you in a little bit here, but they're a really great resource, and they also have an app that I'll share with you as well. So if you are going to be using guidebooks to identify some of these waterfowl that we're going to be talking about, these are some of the maps that you may find. For those of you who are beginners to identification, this is a migration and range map. Usually you'll have 4 colors. Some may have more. Generally though, the red is for breeding, yellow is for migration, blue is for winter, and the purple is for year round. There are some species of waterfowl that don't migrate that you can find in that location all year round, but they do still go through the same molting process. Their plumage colors change, but birds do migrate to areas of low or decreasing resources to areas of higher increasing resources. That's the whole purpose of migration. And if you are in the chat, and I do see that some people are, I would like you to try it out just a little bit. Give me some of your answers. For those of you who are just joining us, go ahead and give that chat box a try. Like I said, I am watching the chat box so I can see all of your answers come through. And my question for you is, what primary resources are birds looking for? So, while everyone is doing that, I want you to really look at the map on your screen, and right here in, let me get my laser pointer out, right here in Nevada, usually we have a lot of migratory birds roll through our state. We don't have a lot of permanent residents or year-round residents. We do have a few. It depends on what species you're looking at. This map right here is not species specific. This is just a general idea of what a map will look like. Okay, great. So I do see some answers coming through. Food, shelter, and space is a big one. That's absolutely correct. I do see food, water. I'm going to give you the answer though. There is actually 3. Food and water is the main one. All of you got that. Great job. And the other one is nesting opportunities. Not necessarily only a place to rest, but normally during migration, it's the beginning or a part or the intermittent stage of before, during, or after the breeding season. So birds are also looking for those nesting opportunities. Good job. All right, so let's move into some identification and features. There are 4 main things that you're going to be looking for, especially if you're a beginner and using books or guides to help you identify some of these birds. Most of them are head and bill shape, wing markings, color markings on the head, body feathers, markings and colors, and just a general overall silhouette of the bird. And we'll talk about what some of those shapes and silhouettes and color markings can help you with. So using these identification features and resources, we do have a few resources to share that are very specific. They're free, they're easy to get, easy to use. They can be in your hand like a guidebook. They can also be on your phone. ID is super important. Hunters can easily identify a lot of the waterfowl, especially in a picture like this. You can, if you're new to identification, it might be difficult. You might just see, you know, some redheads in there. Maybe you're not sure. Maybe you see a lot of hens in there. Maybe you're not sure. But following your guide, following all of these resources will absolutely help you. So ID is super important. Hunters can contribute to their own sport by not firing at those species that are either protected, scarce, knowing the laws and regulations. We don't want anyone to fire on a waterfowl that is not available right now, you know. Depending on where you're at, depending on what time of year it is, you might not be able to fire at a particular bird. Knowing the habitat can also help you in knowing what birds are common in that area. Hunter courtesy, limits change yearly. It's up to you, it's your responsibility to know the laws and regulations for each location, each year. For example, Pahranagat may have different regulations than Overton here in the southern part of the state. Being able to identify waterfowl in the air versus in the hand is extremely helpful. It's easier to identify species when they're in effective range. We don't want any sky busting. We don't want any disturbance of other hunters around in the area. We don't want you to scare off other birds. And what to look for, we kind of already covered this, but differences in size, shape, plumage, patterns and colors, wing beat, flock characteristics are huge, landing technique. Calls also help, which are also super fun to learn about. However, tonight we won't be going over calls, but I really encourage everyone to look and listen for different calls. Silhouettes are also important too, and we covered that. Alrighty, so here's one of multiple resources. This is something developed by the Nevada Department of Wildlife. It's online. The link is on your screen. It also comes on hard copy. It's very easy to get, but going through this small game hunting guide does have all of this season and this year's laws and regulations, location specific as well. And there's also a really easy way to download it on your phone by following this link here. And it does have some pictures and easy identification tips for a lot of different waterfowl in the area. So I highly recommend this one. And I'll have a link in the next few slides for this as well if you want to follow along. One of the ways we're going to be working with some of the pictures and identification in this presentation is following the Lee Master method. This is a book that you can get. I wasn't able to find it online, or I was only able to find bits and pieces online. So the Limb Master method looks at the bill size and shape specifically, and that's the picture that you see down at the bottom of your screen, this guy down here. And it also looks at identifying species in flight and looking at flock characteristics. This is a really good one, very easy to find. It's called Ducks at a Distance. I don't believe it's in print anymore, but it is downloadable from the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. Great resource. I actually have it on my phone and I'm looking at it all of the time. This guide looks at overall silhouette, size and shape, and flight characteristics as well. It also emphasizes the fall and winter plumage patterns, which is what we're going to be looking at this evening in some of the identification pictures that I'll be sharing. Usually during that time, you know, breeding season, most of the drakes and male birds have their most vibrant colors showing through on their plumage. So that's when it's easiest to identify them. That's also when hunting season is, so it's perfect. Most ducks, however, shed their body feathers twice a year, apart from their flight feathers, that's only once a year. When they're going through this stage, it's called the eclipse plumage, and they can look very similar to hens. So we'll also be sharing hen pictures for you guys to see the difference. And here's just an example, the hen and the drake plumage. can look very similar if you're a beginner especially, but we're going to be pointing out some of those differences. And the last resource that I would really love to share with you is Ducks Unlimited smartphone app. I brought it up earlier. This is a wonderful resource. I use it all the time. With every species in the app, it has pictures and description, calls, population, diet, and migration. And earlier we also talked about knowing the habitat. If you know the habitat and what diet or what food resources are found in that area, it will help you know what to expect, know what species could be found in that area. And these are some of the screenshots that I've shared with you. It's a really amazing app, actually. It's very well organized. It even has calls in there, different pictures, range maps. It has really everything that you're looking for. Alrighty, so again, I do have the small game guide up here in the corner. Please go to it, check it out. It's a great resource, especially if you're following along. But we're gonna jump into some bird ID. We're gonna cover ducks first, dabbling and puddle ducks and diving ducks. Then we'll cover some geese. And lastly, we're gonna be covering this other category, which is whistling ducks, sandhill cranes, and swans. All right, so dabbling and puddle ducks, that term is interchangeable. This is usually what they look like when you see them. If you don't see the whole animal floating or walking or flying. They prefer fresh, shallow marshes and rivers. They feed by tipping head first into their water, leaving their rump up, floating above the water where you can see their back end. Their diet is mostly vegetable and seed, really anything they can find in that shallow portion of wherever water they are in. Most have iridescent wing patches, also called a speculum, and we'll have pictures to show that. Their wings are not bright, they're not bright and vibrant. They're larger. They have larger wings in proportion to their bodies. They're very sure-footed. They can really walk and run well on land. So their feet and their legs are not tucked back behind their tail too much. They're pretty centralized. Then they have an unlobed hind toe. They also take off by bursting into the air. They don't go gradually. They just all of a sudden take off. And this symbol up here that I'm circling for you guys, that is a symbol that will be on the screen when we're covering these dabbling and puddle ducks. So if you're ever lost or you need to step away for a moment, you can come back and you'll know exactly which category we're in. Diving ducks. They are larger, deeper lakes and bays. That's the habitat that they prefer. They feed by tipping head first and then diving into the water. They're usually fully submerged, and so they're not feeding in that shallow area. They're feeding down where a puddle duck might not be able to reach. Their diet is mostly fish, shellfish, mollusks, and aquatic plants, so a little bit more varied. They have smaller wings in proportion to their bodies. Their feet and legs can also be tucked a little bit behind them near their rump area. And when they fly, they have very rapid wing beats. Their wings are a lot smaller, so they have to give a lot more energy just to make themselves fly. They have huge paddle feet. We talked about that a little bit already. Those feet are used as rudders to swim and to steer themselves a little bit. And they also have a lobed hind toe, and they also take off by patterning their feet along the top of the water and then gradually becoming airborne. So instead of just bursting into the air, they have to run a little bit on top of the water to get their speed going. And this is this symbol right here. This is going to symbolize that we're going to be talking about some puddle ducks. First, we're going to be going over puddle ducks, dabbling ducks, and they'll have this symbol that I showed you. And then the diving ducks will come second, and they'll have this symbol up here. Alrighty, so here we go. Like I said, we have the chat open. I'm watching the chat. I'm checking for accuracy as well. So at any point, during this identification, please feel free to jump in the chat and just shout out what species of waterfowl you think we're looking at. This one should be an easy one. If you don't know, if you're a beginner, no worries. We're going to be showing the answer before we move on to the next species. But here's that symbol that'll be floating right up here. And then the name of the species will appear right here after we go over some of the details for this particular species. Each slide will have the drake and the hen. Some species aren't called that for the male and the female, but either way we'll have male and female photos. And we'll also have the bird's wings tucked in, so you can see versus the wings tucked out, or sorry, spread out or in flight. So you get a really great variety of understanding what the birds actually look like. So in this case, I do see some correct answers already coming through. The drake for this bird has a yellow bill, green head, and a white ring neck. That's sort of the telltale sign that you're looking at this particular species. Has a white underwing and a curl in the tail. The speculum, which is those secondary primaries, right here on the bird. You can't really see them when they're tucked in. Like I said, it's really hard to see when they're in this form. But when they're in flight, very easy to see. The hen has an orange bill with black feathers, black freckles. And this hen also has the blue and white speculum and the white underwing. So for those of you who are answering in the chat, congratulations, it is a mallard. This one was easy, but we are going to be moving on to some difficult ones. This species, the drake or the male, has the white crowned patch, green eye streak. That's this bird's telltale sign. White shoulder patch and the green and black speculum. I forgot to mention that on each slide, we'll also have the bill pattern and what it will look like during breeding season. This is the Lemaster method. So if this is the method that you use, you'll see your hint right down here. This is this bill that you'll see at the bottom. This is the male, and this dotted line that you see at the tip, that's where the female bill will land. That's the size of the female bill. I forgot to mention that earlier, I do apologize. In the hen also has this eye streak, but it's not green and iridescent, it's dark brown. It also has a white shoulder patch and a green and black speculum. The hen also has a short blue and black tipped bill. So for those of you who are in the chat, I'm not seeing a lot of participation, but that's totally okay. This is an American widgeon. All right, next. This is one of my favorites because that iridescence on the speculum is so vibrant right here. The drake is a small, compact, gray duck with a brown head, and there's a clear line separating this gray color and brown color. Has a green eye band, just like the widgeon, but a little less iridescent, and it has this bright green speculum here. The hen, you can see that color in the speculum shine through even when the wings are tucked in, but the hen, just like the other waterfowl so far, do have a little bit of speckling, tan and brown feathers, not as vibrant, but if you see this, this green speculum here, that's a telltale sign. All right, this is a green winged teal. We also have blue winged teals, but I don't have a picture of it this evening. They do look pretty similar, but I really encourage you to do some research on your own, simply because we don't have time to cover every single species this evening. So I really want you to go out on your own and research, and especially if you're a beginner. If you're a very experienced hunter or birder and you're here this evening, I should see all of those answers come through in the chat correct. Alrighty, so this, I'm not gonna tell you what it is yet, but the drake, overall gray in color, black bill, that's a telltale sign. And this bird also has a black rump right here. And the brown black and white speculum here. The hen, on the other hand, is overall gray in color and has an orange bill with a black line, also showing that white speculum. This is a gadwall. I'm also watching the chat, I'm just checking in. All right, this is also one of my favorites because they're when they fly, you can really see if it's a male and you can see it flying, it really shows what species it is, simply because it has very long tail feathers. It has a bronze green speculum that the arrow shows right here, and black bill with blue-gray sides that you can see on the bill down here, kind of outlined with that blue-gray. It's very pretty. This bird also has a white line leading from the head to the neck right here. You can also see that white line when their wings are tucked in. The hen, on the other hand, does have that gray-blue bill, a brown speculum, but the pointed tail is much shorter than the males. And if you don't know already, this is a northern pintail. So only the drake will have these really long tail feathers that you can really see when they're in flight. The hens, although rare, may have a green cast to their outside plumage that you can really see showing in the sun. It is a little bit of an iridescence. All right, moving on. This drake right here that I'm circling here has that large spoon-shaped bill. The hen does too, but the head of the drake is a little bit different. It has that green iridescence with the yellow eye. This bird also has a green speculum and a very brown belly. The hen, like I said, also has that large spoon-shaped bill. A dull green speculum. It is green, but it is very hard to see, and it has pale edged brown feathers, a little bit speckly at first glance. This is a northern shoveler. The northern shoveler actually gets its name from that large spoon-shaped bill. Okay, this bird does have the wedge-shaped head, and by that I mean the overall shape of the head, not just the head part, but also including the beak. It has a red head and eye and a very black bill, and the bill has a very, very general slope to it. So there's no clear line as far as the slope is concerned between the head and the bill. That slope is continuous and then flattens out a little bit. This bird also has a black breast with gray back and wings, and there is that clear line separating those colors here. The hen, however, both share the gray speculum. However, the hen does have this brown color, this light brown color, and that clear line like you see here. Both the drake and the hen will have a black bill. This is a canvas back. This bird and the next bird are pretty difficult to tell apart, but there are a couple key things that you can look at, some key features. This looks like a canvasback. It's absolutely not a canvasback. The drake has a rounded head with a yellow eye. The canvasback has a red eye. So that's one of the key features you can look for. The red head is there though, the black breast is there, and the gray stripe is there, part of the speculum. So this is that gray stripe. It extends throughout the wing. But this is that speculum right here. That's the part of the secondary wing, secondary feathers on the wing. The bill has a little bit different pattern. However, the blue-gray bill with the white band and black tip. The hen also has that rounded out head and the same color pattern of the bill, the blue-gray bill with the white band and the black tip. The hen though has an overall brown body with gray stripes on the wings. This is a redhead, and I loved the iteration that Martin used in our last in our last presentation, which was part 1 of this waterfowl workshop, which I hadn't actually heard before. The redhead has this nice rounded head here, as opposed to the canvasback, which has that sloped head. So you see this rounded off head here. It's a better vision of it right here. This rounded off head is a redhead. All right, so those of you who are following along in the chat, thank you. I do see you participating. I very much appreciate it. We did go over the canvasback and the redhead, but here's a picture of 2 drakes next to each other. See if you can tell which one is the redhead and which one is the canvasback. And at a distance, or if you're a beginner, they look extremely similar, but we do have some key features where you can tell them apart. I'll just give you a couple more seconds. And I am still following in the chat. Thank you, Lance. I do see you answering. All right, so the one on the back left is a canvasback, and the one in the foreground is the redhead. Like I said, one of the key features that you can look for on a redhead is this nice rounded off head. And on a canvasback, the overall general shape of the head is extremely different. The canvasback has this very sloped off silhouette. Another key feature are the eye color, a canvasback having a red eye versus a redhead having a yellow eye. And both species have this black breast here, but a canvasback does have this lighter color, ivory white coming through. Whereas a redhead does have a little bit of vermiculation. If you're not sure what vermiculation is, it's a little bit of zigzagging pattern of black and white or dark and light colors on the back. Both have this dark colored rump though. Alrighty. Good job. For those of you who are participating in the chat, thank you very much. Moving on a little bit, this bird, the drake, has a black back and head, but really notice the tufted crown, and I'm kind of circling it here for you. It's not a perfect rounded shape like we saw in the redhead. It has a little bit of a tuft here, some raised feathers, and the hen shows this as well. It does have, the drake anyway, it has a vertical white mark before the wing, noted right here on the lower part of the shoulder. The bill has a white stripe and a slight outline of white. You'll see that down here on the bill pattern. In flight, which is very easy to see, you'll have this gray wing stripe, not only the speculum, which is here, but it will extend throughout the wing. The hen, again, overall brown body. One of the telltale signs here is the hen has this light brown cheek patch and the white stripe coming through, as well as this, this tufted crown up here. This is a ring neck. You'll notice that the ring neck doesn't actually have a ring around its neck. The name ring neck actually comes from this white stripe here around the lower neck part of the bill. All right, and another look-alike, not a ring neck. The drake in this bird species has a black head and black breast, black tail. The head is glossed with a little bit of a faint iridescence, mostly green, maybe some teal in there. This bird also has the tufted crown, just like the ring neck, but note there's no stripe on the base or neck part of the bill. The hen is an overall dark body, again, clean cut white mask near the base of the bill. And those are feathers right here that I'm circling for you. Both birds have that white speculum. And this bird also has the yellow eye and a bluish bill. And this is a lesser scaup. Most drakes, this is a drake right here, most drakes will have a little bit of vermiculation on the back here. All right, for those of you who are paying attention, here is both species right next to each other. One is a ringneck and one is a lesser scaup. So take a moment. I am looking at the chat. You'll notice that both have a yellow eye. One may have a little bit of vermiculation. Both have tufted crowns. All right, the one on the left is the ring-necked duck. You'll see that clear ring right here, that white stripe on the bill. And even though there's a little bit of faint coloration right here where that ring would be, the lesser scaup is a little bit of a different pattern here on the bill and different plumage patterns right here on the back. All right. A few more, we're getting through them. The drake and this bird, this is one of my favorite. The tail feathers are upright vertically most of the time. So you'll see that right here. The hen can also display this body posture here that you'll see, but not always. In the summer, which is this picture here, the drake will have a rusty red body with a white cheek patch and a black cap with a large blue bill. That blue can become pretty vibrant. It can also be sort of a gray blue. In winter, circled here in the blue box, the gray and brown body with the white cheek patch can somewhat resemble a hen, but you're really looking for that white cheek patch. The hen, on the other hand, does have a lighter color cheek patch, but a very clear tan, toned down white with a brown line going through it right here. Both the drake and the hen have that dark cap. However, the drake is most of the time a little bit darker, sometimes even black. This is a ruddy duck. So during breeding season, you'll see that blue bill. And then in the off season, or what we talked about earlier, that eclipsed plumage, where in transition, when all of those breeding feathers have molted or in the process of molting, the drake can resemble the hen. All right, this is actually something that Rob Vincent, who's joining us from the Fish and Wildlife Service, who I'm so lucky to have him presenting with me tonight. This is something that he knows a lot more information about. So I'm going to hand it off to Rob just for the next couple slides so he can talk a little bit more about speculum color and wing identification. So Rob, if you can, take a moment, unmute your microphone and take it away.
All right, hello. I hope everybody's enjoying the slideshow so far. So a cool thing about waterfowl wing, duck wings especially, is it's almost like a driver's license for the duck. So a duck wing can tell you all kind of information. It tell you what species it is, it tell you what gender it is, and it also tell you the age. But we're worried about species right now. So if you look at the hunting regs, when you're looking at hunting regs, when you're going through and you see how to field clean birds, it tells you to either leave one fully feathered wing or a fully feathered head or both on there. That's the reason why, so the bird can be identified while you're in the field. So if someone comes up, a game warden or a federal wildlife officer comes up and checks you, they'll be able to know what it is. So when you're looking at wings, you want to look, we've been talking about speculum colors or the secondary colors. You want to look at those things. You want to look at the upper culverts, which is the shoulders. Like if you're looking at a cinnamon teal, which you'll find mostly here, or a shoveler or a widgeon, they'll have those colors in those shoulders. Wood ducks will have some color, and there's a few wood ducks that you may run into. They're very rare here. If you hunt around Stillwater, you might be able to, or the Fallon area, there's wood ducks there. I know California has a population of wood ducks over there. So depending on where you're hunting, you may or may not come in contact frequently with these birds, but you can also tell what they are and by looking at these characteristics. So if you're looking at the difference between a diver or a puddle duck. For example, a puddle duck will have like most of them will have the iridescent speculums that are in there. Even the females, some females, there's actually one species of puddle duck that doesn't have an iridescent speculum or a wing patch, and there's one female that doesn't. And Jess covered those earlier. So the pintail hen doesn't have an iridescent speculum. It's just a brown speculum, but it has a big, broad white stripe at the bottom of it. So one of the things that people have a lot of confusion on when they're out hunting, especially beginners, is knowing the difference between a pintail hen and a gadwall. Those will catch you because you can only shoot one pintail, and it can either be a drake or a hen, and you can shoot 7 gadwalls. So you've got to be able to know the difference between the two. So look at those wings, look at the bill, and the wings will never let you wrong. So if you want to study these things, the Fish and Wildlife Service has a good resource. It's called Species, Age, and Sex Identification of Duck Wings or Ducks Using Wing Plumage. You can look that up online and pull off the pictures, and it goes through. It actually tells you how to age them. So if anybody's interested in extending their identification abilities into the duck wings, I encourage you to look those things up. So if you're looking at divers typically have grays and whites. And, if you're looking at the bucephala, which is the glumped and sea ducks, the golden eyes and buffleheads, and those are what we call black and whites. They're pretty much black and white. So the white is in the secondaries, extend up into the shoulders. The mergansers will have that same kind of color pattern. You can see a common merganser in the center of your screen. That's actually a female. The drakes will look a lot like that common goldeneye that you see to the right of that, except there'll be a big, broad white or black line that separates the shoulder and the secondaries. So I encourage everyone to start learning your duck wings. Another hard one that people have confusion with, and it's one that I like to bring up and like to teach in the field when I have the chance, is the difference between a ringneck and a redhead hen. So as you remember when Jess was covering the redheads and the ringnecks, the hens look a lot alike, and a lot of people struggle with those. There's also what I call a little cheat code that's in these the ringneck. So if you're looking at a ringneck and you're having trouble figuring out if it's a ringneck or a redhead, so I don't know if Jess can find a tertial on those wings. I know the pictures are probably small, but the tertials are the feathers that are closest to the body before the secondaries. So it's those longer where she's circling that at the ringneck. There's usually the tertial that's closest to where the secondaries start, which is secondaries are the 10 feathers that make up that little speculum area. It's going to have a green, iridescent green wash to it. So if you pull that wing out and it has a green iridescent wash to it, and it's got kind of a really dark, just a greenish colored wing to the top, or like a little bit of bronze in it, it's a ringneck. And the reason why I say that is you can shoot 7 ringnecks. You can only shoot 2 redheads. So if you pull that wing out and it's just a gray feather and it's got like a little bit of black edging or dark edging on it, it's either going to be a canvasback or a redhead at that point. So if you got a ringneck versus a canvasback. So look at these duck wings, and I encourage you when you go duck hunting and you shoot one. I mean, it's all great and everything, but when you get home, look at those wings, take them out, spread them, and go through the colors, look it up in a book, and learn how to identify these duck wings, because it will serve you well while you're in the field, especially if you get something that you don't know. And I guess what I also encourage people to start out with is if you shoot something you say you shot a duck and you thought it was a wood duck, and you walk out, you pick it up, and you have no idea what it is. So the first thing to look at is you want to try to separate it into if it's a puddle duck or a diver. That can get you in the ballpark. So look at those toes. Jess told you earlier about those toes. Flip it over and look at that toe. If it's got a lobed toe, it's a diver. If it's got a toe that looks like a chicken toe or unlobed toe, it's going to be a puddle duck. And that'll kind of get you in that realm of which way you need to start going as far as you're keying out your identification. So, and like she said earlier, theoretically, you should know what you're shooting at before you pull a trigger. So, we have people that shoot some grebes, which are not waterfowl, and they're, not legal to kill, that they don't know. So again, that's why this waterfowl identification is very important, and we encourage you to take a look at all this stuff. All right, Jess.
Thank you, Rob. Yeah,
No?
I am super fortunate that Rob is able to join us this evening because he knows so much more about identification specifically through wings. And I am not a pro at identification through wings, so it was really nice to have him. So Rob, thank you so very much for working through these slides with everyone. I really appreciate it. So Rob did cover 2 slides with a lot of information, and then in the chat I see that there was a digital collection, an ID guide that Rob was talking about. So thank you for sharing that. I very much appreciate that as well. But we are going to move forward a little bit. We already have covered the ducks, all of them. I mean, all of them that I have in the presentation tonight. We can't cover every single species. We would be here for about 4 hours. So we're going to be covering a few of the most common ones that we have here in Nevada. We covered the puddle ducks, the dabblers, and then also the diving ducks. Now we're moving forward to the geese. The little symbol up here has changed. This is our little goose symbol. And same as before, we are going to have wings closed in and wings out in flight, so you can get a little bit of a variety of what these birds look like. Before we were talking about a drake and a hen, that's the male and the female. In geese, it's the gander and the goose. The male is the gander and the female is the goose. In this case, again, if you know what the species is, plug it into the chat. You know, we really want you to stay active, practice your identification skills. If you're a beginner, this is a perfect opportunity for you. And I am seeing some of those answers come through the chat, so thank you. In this bird species, the gander and the goose, these guys are monomorphic, which means the male and the female look almost exactly the same. They have a black head and neck, also called the stocking, with a white chin strap. That's what that left arrow is pointing at right here. They have a pale breast and back and light overall coverts. The coverts specifically are can really help you in bird identification. This bird is a Canada goose, very common. They flock and travel in long strips or V's, usually honking pretty loudly. So you can actually hear them coming and leaving, which is pretty cool. This species looks extremely similar to a Canada goose. They do have the black head and neck or stocking with the V, with the V chin strap right here. They also have that light tan to brown breast feather color plumage. They have a white undertail that you can see here, but a shorter neck and bill. And it's noticeably shorter, both of them, the neck and the bill. Now, when you're looking at this species by itself, you might not realize that it's a cackling goose. However, when you see them next to each other, like in this picture, you can really see the difference. It's almost like looking at a mini Canada goose. So if you are in the chat, I do see that some people are saying a Floyd lamb goose, which, yeah, you know, sure. Cackling geese and Canada geese can pretty frequently be seen at parks near your local neighborhood. And some of them can be pretty friendly, but I really emphasize here not to walk up to the animals, not to feed them, not to try and pet them. You know, we want to keep them as wild as possible. So take a moment, look at this picture, which is the cackling and which is the Canada. All right, I do see some answers coming in. The left is the cackling and the right is the Canada. So good job. All right, moving on. This particular gander and goose species has mostly a white body with black primaries, and you'll see them poke out right back here, those black primary feathers. Now, primary feathers are part of the leading edge of the wing. They have pink feet, although you can kind of see them in here, not really. They have pink feet. The head is often rust stained near the bill. You can actually see that a little bit in this photo, but if you're looking at guidebooks, they'll actually make a specific note for that. The bill is pink with a dark horizontal line right where the opening is. You can see that right here in this picture. And there are quite a few varieties of this particular species. This is a snow goose, if you are guessing in the chat. They also have dark morphs, also called a blue goose. So I've made a note of that with these blue arrows here. These blue arrows are pointing at the blue goose morph. They still have the white head and throat. However, they have the dark and gray wings. Variants may have light bellies with some speckling happening, and they have dark feet and bill. Also, the juveniles will have that dark feet and bill. This black coloration, this dark color moving up the stocking or the neck of the bird may only reach to the base of the neck, may reach near the crown. That's where that variety comes in, that morph of the blue goose. All right. This species was pretty fun for me to find pictures of. There are quite a few beautiful pictures. This gander and goose is pretty stocky, mostly brown body. But again, these guys have some variety, some variable black barring on the belly in no particular distinct pattern. You'll just have some barring, some patchiness happening here. And you can also see that here. These guys are also monomorphic, meaning the male and the female. The gander and the goose look similar in color and plumage. They do have a white patch of feathers just above the bright pink orange bill. And this is a white fronted goose. That's where they get their name. This patch right here of white feathers just above the orange bill. They also get the nickname speckle belly because of their speckling on their chest here. They also have orange legs. The juveniles will have that orange bill. They'll also have the orange feet, but they won't have that black barring on the belly here. So they will lack that. They will also lack that white patch at the base near their bill. So the adults will have that black barring and that white patch. All right, just a few more. The geese that we were talking about, they were the gander and the goose. That was the male and the female. We are now in the other category. You can see that up here. These guys are the male and the female, without giving too much away of what this species is called. The cob and the pen is the male and the female. This species is white feathered, heavy bodied, and they do have this, this rust stained speckling on their chest, on their breast area. They have long necks, short, dark legs, and dark eyes. The bill slopes gently away from the head, very similar to some of the other species that we were looking at before. And they have that rust stained breast. They will sometimes have a dark bill with a yellow base. Although rare, it is seen, and that's this variety up here. This variety specifically is called a Buick's swan. So this is a tundra swan, but they do have this very, this distinct variety with that base, with the yellow base on the bill. It's the Eurasian form. But most birds have very little to no yellow. If there is a little bit of yellow, it'll be just at the corner of the eyes, and you can kind of see that in these pictures here. Okay, So we just had the cob and the pen. This is the roan and the mare, very similar to what horses are named from. This species is long-necked, long-legged, gray-bodied, and sometimes that gray can have a little bit of blue slate color, which is very pretty. You can see that here. Very dark legs, bright red crown that you can see here, right above the eyes. It's sort of like a big patch that sits right here, a white cheek patch, and a gray or dark colored bill. This is a sandhill crane. I do see answers coming in the chat. Thank you. Everyone's doing a great job. So that actually covers it for the other category. Like I said, if we could sit here and go through all of the beautiful species and all of their variety, we would, but we don't have all that time. So tonight we covered just a few of the common species you might find in our state of Nevada. And I do want to open it up for questions in a little bit. You are muted though, so you will not be able to speak. But if there were questions that we were unable to answer in the chat and in the question and answer box, I will take a peek at that box in just a second. Quick review though, we covered the Pacific Flyway and all of its features, some identification key points, things to look for if you're a beginner, or some ways to improve and become an advanced identification person when looking at all these waterfowl. We covered bird ID specifically, some species from ducks, geese, and that other category. So I'm going to take a quick peek at the Q&A box. It looks like we covered everything, but I did see some questions, so thank you so much. The moderators really enjoy answering those questions while we're presenting. A few reminders before I let everyone go this evening. Use your resources. We shared some great resources, links included. These are free, downloadable, some come in hard copy. Especially that app is very fun and easy to use. Really get to know your waterfowl species. Know your local laws and regulations. Sometimes they can be location specific. They change every year. It's really your responsibility to look for and know those laws and regulations. We do have something called Operation Game Thief. This helps our game wardens and the community and the waterfowl that we do have. Calls can be made anonymous if you choose to do that. The number is on your screen. It's also on our website. It's 1-800-992-3030. And then there's a new app that came out pretty recently called Tip 411. Again, free. Tip 411 is a free app that allows NDOW, which is Nevada Department of Wildlife, and the public to interact with each other through anonymous tips, alerts, things like that. It's very fun and very helpful. And lastly, I want to thank everyone again for coming on tonight, participating in the presentation, asking questions. Just one more thing before we go. There is a survey that will pop up immediately after tonight's presentation is ended. If you could just take a few short moments, there are, I think, 3 or 4 questions. It's very easy. This survey helps us improve programs, and getting your feedback really helps us make our presentations fun for people, make them better, more entertaining, more informative. And then lastly, we want everyone to join us for more programs like this. This is part 2 of a 4-part series. Next week, Tuesday night, 6:30, we'll be covering a little bit of additional information in this waterfowl workshop. Very useful information by another one of our staff. So look on our Facebook page, look at all of the events that we have coming up. Most of them are virtual programs like this. Join it, because there are always so much to learn, And that's it. We are done this evening. Thank you so much. When you do go outside, if you can, We ask that you practice responsible recreation and embrace the outdoors. Be respectful to wildlife, be respectful for others, ask questions. Always remember that you're always learning when you're outside. So thank you again for joining us. I'm going to take just a few seconds to thank our moderators. Thank you, everyone. And thank you for those who participated in the chat. Next week's topic is hunting tactics and tips with a guest host, which is going to be very exciting. So I really encourage you to register for that one. All right, thank you, everyone. I'm going to take just a couple seconds to close out.